Try this again with my mic turned on. Hello and good afternoon. My name is Martin Cowart, and welcome to Noonday Meditation and Contemplative Prayer Power Hour, where we've been gathering together every day at noon Eastern Standard Time, right here to create a virtual space for us to love and support each other through these difficult and challenging times. And I don't think it's any of us have ever in our lifetime have ever experienced anything quite like what we've been experiencing since this pandemic came into our world. And what I want to talk about today is about the paradox, what we're learning about ourselves and we're almost being forced, if you will, by the Divine Mother. I call this the Divine Mother's sort of like the mother bear slap with her baby cub to keep him to protect him, to keep him out of danger. That perhaps this big timeout is a way for the Divine Mother to put us all into the sidelines, to put us all into a big timeout in our rooms, if you will, to reflect, to get to know ourselves, and really come to the terms of just how much we have to be grateful for in this world. And we're learning so many wonderful things about ourselves and our resilience and our courage. But I think what we're really learning is just how interconnected we are and how much we do love each other, and how we're able to see through the shadows and the darknesses and the two worlds we live in today. And we do live in the paradox of two worlds. I'll teach you a little something. I don't know if you've ever noticed, but there's something called a mandorla, and that's that almond shape that you often see in icons, and you might see them in stained glass windows. And that almond shape is where two circles overlap each other. You'll notice that up here in my logo, there is a little space in here where these overlap, and that almond shape is called a mandorla. And that is where the intersection of the two worlds. There's the material world, the, the human world, if you will, the earth world, the world we see, the world we experience, the external world. But that's only part of it. We're also sitting in we're also our life. There's also the spiritual realm, the world we cannot see, the world we cannot touch, the world we cannot experience with our normal sort of human sort of um, sensors. We can experience them. We do experience them. We experience it all the time. We experience that deep connection. But it's painful. We sit in that paradox of the two worlds constantly. And centering prayer, which is a technique of prayer that I follow and that I talk about and we'll show you in a few minutes how to do, is the way we are able to sit in that uncomfortable paradox. I mean, let's just face it, it is painful. It is painful to turn on the news. I don't watch the news right now. It's just way, way, way too painful because I can't do anything about any of it. All I can do is pray and open my heart, because I think that's how we create new worlds. We create from the inside out. And so if we're able to sit in that uncomfortable paradox, if you will, of what's happening in the world, where thousands of people Americans are dying every single day. And it's also painful to see leadership that's just mean and cruel. It's telling people that this doesn't exist, and having people continuing to con people into a false belief that there's something going on that's not true. That somehow this is just some kind of a way for people to get power. That's just not real. People are dying, and most of us at this point, we've had friends and loved ones who have died. We certainly all had friends and loved ones that have gotten sick. And I was watching the other day of something I do watch the news. I watched a little glimpse of it, and I was particularly enjoying a show where it was people, women, a woman who was a emergency room doctor, and she was talking about how people who had this belief this was some kind of a fake event, and they come down with COVID-19, and how quickly they realize when they get in the hospital how real this really is. and how painful it is for the healthcare physicians and the doctors who are doing the care to have to go through that experience with people, to just realize, this is real. This is a real thing. People are really dying. People are really getting sick, and we need leaders. It's painful to have leaders who are not telling the truth, and that's creating more deaths and more tragedy. So, but that's the paradox I'm talking about. That is part of what we're living in, and that's painful. But that is the reality of one world we live in right now. We live in a world where people are telling false information, and people are dying, and more people are dying because they're believing it. And can't explain that, but that's just the way the world is. But there's also another world, and that world is the interior world. That's our spiritual world. That's the world of love and compassion and creativity. And that's what we come here for every day at noon, to practice. Hey, there's my dear friend Mindy. How are you doing? Nice to see you. And here it is on this lovely Saturday afternoon. Yes, a dear cousin has been for the last 2 weeks with Sokovia. Grateful Christine to become. Oh, that's wonderful. Yes, it's just amazing to me, Mindy. It's heartbreaking to see people who are following a false narrative that this is some kind of government uh, thing to do, to try to take over some people's lives, and it's not at all. It's people trying to love and protect themselves, and that's why I've talked about the two realities of what people think New York is kind of hard to, but I'll tell you, I went to New York this week for the first time since March, and there's a feeling of love. As you see across my ticker here about the mass being a symbol of love, being a symbol of, I love my life, I love you, I love my neighbors, myself. So when I see people, everybody walk, I'm seeing there, to me, it's like what that's bringing up for me is just love. It's just a big statement of love. And so that feels good. It's like, the mask I'm wearing, the mask I'm hiding behind is the mask of love. I want you to know how much I love you. So I'm glad your cousin is getting better, and is going to come out of this. But it's through our prayers and our love for people that are going to move people through that. So, and there's my dear friend Rohit. Nice to see you on here today. I was speaking to a friend in another country who lives this morning, by the way, and I want to connect you with him. He lives in a country where they're not so tolerant of LGBTQ people, and he needs to seek asylum in this country. And I think that's going to be a little easier once we have a new president, because he does come from an Arab country. And so I'm going to have him reach out to you, because I know that you know a little bit about how to navigate through those challenging hurdles that to get in this country. Because everybody, I don't understand it, but I know you do. So I thought about you this morning when I was speaking to him, and he was saying he wanted to know if the United States would give him asylum, and I thought, well, his chances of that are getting much better as we move into a new administration that's opening its doors to people needing asylum from persecution in their own countries. So again, we're talking about the paradox of two worlds we live in. I mean, it's real. There are people who are living in countries where they fear for their lives for being gay, and they want to come. And they used to have the United States at one time. As you know, there was a time when people could come here in this country to seek asylum from persecution, whatever their reasons were. And we've been in a place of intolerance for that, and that's been painful for me too. So again, we do live in this paradox of two worlds right now, and the external world is just extremely painful right now, for most of us, particularly those of us who are empathetic and have hearts and compassion. I mean, how could you not? How could you not? I don't know how. And it's really this having this to do every day is what grounds me. So thank you for being here with me today on Saturday, Thank you for your comments and bringing your voice and your hearts to the space for each other. And what we do here is we practice something called centering prayer, and that's a form of prayer that was actually, it comes out of it was taught out of a 14th century anonymous book called The Cloud of Unknowing, which is the classic sort of uh, wisdom on contemplative, on being a contemplative in the modern world. And so it's a little hard because it's written in the 1400s, so it's a little hard to completely get today. But I'm really fortunate for modern mystics like Thomas Keating and Cynthia Bourgeois and others who can teach us how to apply and use that language in a way that can allow us to center ourselves inside this huge paradox of discomfort that we may find ourselves in. And what we do when we do centering prayer is just simple. Is it's just like it sounds, and I talk about it all the time. It's about getting still. It's just calming ourselves down and getting focused and becoming present to the moment. Eckhart Tolle talks a lot about the present, the power of now. And we're all talking about the same thing. It's like, how do I get into the now? Because our ego thinking mind is always going back to the past to pick up on something that was negative, probably a painful situation, and projecting that in the future, robbing us from the present moment. So what we want to do is why we come together is that the more we project that negative into the future, the more opportunity for that negative story, the negative narrative to actually manifest in the future. So there's a lot of power here in coming back and getting present to the truth of now, the truth of what we are. And the more we get to know who we are, we find a deeper sense of purpose for our lives to make a difference in others. And then we can begin to project that reality, that narrative into the future. And that's a lot more exciting for us to do, is to project a narrative that's grounded in love and prosperity and truth and compassion, than one that's grounded in fear and scarcity and not enough, because that's a painful way to live, isn't it? But we have to do our inner work. We have to let go of our own inner emotions, particularly when it comes to money. I mean, I have a firm belief that this whole idea of scarcity, the scarcity mindset, I call it, or it's called, I don't call it, that's what it's called. The scarcity mindset is what the root of all our problems. We have this false sense of belief that there's not enough resources, not enough money. Somehow we're lacking in our own abilities and potential. And that so we created infrastructures and social systems and structures and tax systems and stuff that really just inflate that lie of scarcity, that we have to claw our way to the top and beat up other people and manipulate the world to get our way so we can get our own share of the pie. And it's just not true. It's painful. I live the way it's a painful way to live. So when we can let go of all that, we have the courage to face those fears of not enough, those fears of scarcity, and sit in the uncomfortableness of it and open our hearts and let them go, trusting there's something bigger taking care of us. There's something bigger than it's called life. Some people call it God. Some people call it life as it is. I call it Joy the Wise Woman. But when we fall into that, when we get into that spaciousness, what Jesus called the kingdom of heaven is at hand. That's what he taught us how to get into. Through prayer and meditation, that's how we create a new world. Because then we can get out of our own way. We're letting go of our ego's need to get its way. That's what letting go means. We're surrendering the ego's need to have its needs met. Because we know there's something bigger that wants to happen. And if we can just let go of that egoic need to have our needs met and open our hearts to a bigger purpose, the bigger truth of who we are, that purpose becomes very obvious to us. And we actually begin to live life by just being still and allowing that mystery to live through us. That's what a mystic is someone who's experienced enough of life to go beyond sort of a belief system in a God and a belief system to an actual experience of the mystery of life itself and allow that mystery to flow through us more fully. And that's why we have the sanctuary. It's a safe place for us to even have these conversations, because if you've never experienced this, it's like if you've never experienced that flood of abundance and that generosity and joy that we all have within us, then you don't know I don't know what you're talking about, because then you think it sounds, because you don't know it, and the only way to know it is to experience it. And we are always experiencing it, but we may not have it in our conscious awareness. You can't not experience the divine, because we wouldn't be alive. You can't be disconnected from that divine self. But you can feel disconnected because the mind will create a narrative that tells you you're a separate entity and you're not really quite good enough and you need to do what you need to do. Okay? Every living being is a part of the Creator. Love is one of the best approaches to everything we deal with and everything we see. That is absolutely correct. I would agree 100%. Not that I'm correct, right or wrong. It's not about correct. But yes, I would agree with that. Every living being. Life is, the Creator is life, recreating itself through us. And that's a very exciting. When you sit down and when we get still and we really think about that, and our hearts open up to that, to the miracle of life itself and who we are, and the fact that we can actually become aware, unlike any other animal, we're aware of our own divinity. We're also aware that we have a mortality, a physical mortality. So this human condition, this human being, is really we are just fascinating miracles. And the more we tap into that fascination, that curiosity, that generosity, the more exciting the world is becoming. It's happening right now. Happening today. We are a part of the creative process, if we so choose to be part of that. We can also choose to live in the darkness, and many people we do. It's not that we're bad people; we just haven't experienced the light. So what do we need to do as light workers, as light carriers of love? Shine the light on people who haven't experienced it yet. Love them, and that means people that you don't like, because remember, the part of you that doesn't like them is your ego as well, because the heart doesn't dislike anybody. So if there's a part of you holding back, it says, I don't like that person, I don't like that, you might not approve of their behavior, but if you don't like that person, that's not coming from love, that's coming from darkness. Your darkness doesn't like their darkness, is what that means. Because the light just loves unconditionally. And when the light loves the darkness unconditionally, we live in peace. That's the formula. When the light loves the darkness unconditionally, we live in peace. That is the formula. That's it. And that's what we do when we come together and we pray. The centering prayer. We meditate. We let go of our own needs. Well, I think that's the human behavior. I think it is sad. Of course it's sad. It's very sad. It's heartbreaking. You're right. But the hatred is learned. It's learned out of fear. And some of that, if you're living in a country that kills gay people, for example, then you might have developed a certain sense of fear and hatred for the people in your own country who do that behavior. So it's not like it's look at the story between the Arabs and the Jews since the beginning of time. It's just it's all based on a narrative that somehow one is more deserving than the other, and it's not true. And what we've seen breakthroughs in that all across the world, certainly in that part of the world, is that when they realize that's not true, that they're all one. That's how we create peace. We learn to love and accept each other just like we are. All of them. All of us. Because when you come from that place of love, there's no such thing as a superior position. No human being, Nothing has a superior position than anybody else. Um, I watched a wonderful show the other day. If you haven't seen it, it's called My Octopus, My Teacher. It's about a guy off of Cape of South Africa who develops this relationship with this octopus. And it's just quite amazing movie. It's a wonderful documentary. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you going to see that movie, watching it on Netflix or wherever. I think it's Netflix. It just will open your heart to exactly how vast the living and the life force of this country are. Exactly. Hate will never be part of divinity. Well, and that's not. Wait a minute. Let me explain something to you. Hate and the egoic mind and all those things that are negative, all the dualities, they were all created by the same creator. The capability of the human being to act out of ego. So it's human behavior that has created all of these problems. So I'm saying human behavior out of their own narcissistic needs for their own sense of purpose, their own narcissistic needs, is what's created this uh, this paradox. But I have to say that I don't know that hate has never been part of the divine program, because if it wasn't, it wouldn't exist. So people often ask me, why does shadow exist? I said, because we have to we have to have something to reflect off of. We need hate to reflect off of. We need to have that contrast in order to understand the difference between the two. So I don't know that. So the shadow does serve us, but it's learning. What we're learning is how to own that shadow within ourselves. I mean, let's talk about our own internalized homophobia. For those of us that are gay men or gay women, LGBT community, we internalize hate that we would learn from society, but we internalize that towards ourselves. We needed to internalize that lie, like the lie of scarcity, in order to discover the truth. We have to go into the darkness within our lives to see the light. And don't ask me why, because I don't know. That's the mystery of life. But that behavior, killing people, lying to people, manipulating people, hurting people, that's all comes out of the individual darkness and fear. And how do we get out of that? How do we move through that? How do we shift that? We go inside ourselves and we look at our own darkness and we look at our own hate. You know, I mean, how many people do we know that we think we're liberal, spiritual people who hate Trump? They'll tell you, I hate him. Well, how spiritual is that? Really? You have to think about it. We can't. There is no such thing as an other. It's the individual minds, our individual egoic minds' perception that we're these individual separate beings, and there's other people out there who are creating all the problems. Once you realize there's no other people out there creating, we're creating the problems. We're creating the hate. We're creating the darkness. We are acting out of darkness. Is what we're doing. We are all acting out of darkness, and I haven't met any one human being yet that is immune from that. Maybe Jesus did. I don't know. Jesus was the enlightened one. He was born into that without sin. We're all born without sin, by that goes. But he was a teacher. But yeah, you're welcome. Absolutely. That's what we're here for. We're here to learn, and I just have to keep going back and forth. It's not my learning. It's what did Jesus say? I go back to that same commandment to love your Lord, your God, with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind, and then to love your neighbor as yourself. And that is hard to do with people that you don't like. It's also hard to do with the parts of yourself that you don't like. That's what shadow work's all about. Learning to love and accept those parts of ourselves we hide, repress, and deny. so that we can love the parts of others we don't like in them. That's the power of self-reflection, the power of centering prayer. So let's do some centering prayer today. And thank you for your active conversation. I always think it's so much more exciting and engaging for me here. And when are you going to come over here and join me one day? And I love when people come on the show and we can have this conversation and for others to share with us. So let's schedule a day, Rohit, for you to come on and participate with me on this noonday show one day. I'd love to have you come on and share your story and help guide us through this difficult time. This is a sacred sanctuary for everybody. Like I said before, I wish I could figure out how to make it more interactive, but I can't yet. I don't know how to do that. Maybe somebody can show me how. I'd be happy to do it, but I don't know how to do that. So anyway, let's meditate and let's get still. So we can sit in this paradox. So again, rise your hands up in the air. Just notice that you can do it. You have the power within you to raise your hand. Just something as simple as that. Without that life force, you wouldn't be able to do it. Just feel the life within your fingers and your toes and your body. So we'll start with that, expanding beyond the brain. We often think everything goes on in our head, but actually all of our emotions, they're in the body. So put your hands back and be comfortable. Sit up straight. Feet on the floor like a proud human being. Sit up proud. And we're going to start with just some conscious breathing. Allowing ourselves to just get still and soften the mind and just breathe. And as you're breathing, just notice what happens. Notice what happens if you lengthen the in-breath and lengthen the out-breath and just slow the whole breathing process down just a little bit. Slow it down just a little bit more. And just allow the mind to let go. With intention, surrender all your thoughts, all your beliefs, all your opinions, all your judgments. Just let them all go. Surrender them all. Don't hold on to anything in this earthly world. Fall into that stillness. To a deeper knowing that all is well, regardless of what's happening out there in the world that's so painful. Let it all go for a moment, for this moment. And fall into that still point within us, in the heart. That emptiness, that spaciousness, what Jesus called heaven, the kingdom of heaven within. Allow yourself to let go of the earthly world so you can fall more soundly, more gently, more clearly into the stillness. Of love within. And just notice what comes up in the silence, how the human mind wants to fill that spaces. And just smile when they come up and let them go. You might want to just scan your body for any emotions you might be feeling in the moment. Whatever you're feeling, feel them. Feel what it's like to feel whatever you're feeling. Don't think about the feeling, feel the feeling. And allow your feelings, your emotions within your body to pull you more deeply within into that kingdom. Start with letting go of the mind's thoughts and opening your heart to what you're feeling to go deeper within yourself. That beautiful still point of infinite love. Allow the sound of that bell to wake us up from our thinking and our thoughts and let them go. Allow the vibration to pull us deeper within ourselves. That still point of unconditional love. There's that wake up bell again, waking us up from our thoughts, our planning, to remind us to let them go, surrender them, and fall back into a deeper place within ourselves of love and compassion and truth. There's that annoying bell again to wake us up from our thoughts and our planning and our egoic needs to figure things out. All good stuff. But just for right now, let them go. Just surrender them and fall back into a deeper space within you. Emptiness, the kingdom of heaven, an infinite place of love within the heart. And that's our final bell. Welcome back. Welcome back to the external world. Welcome back from our journey inside. I hope you discovered a new part of yourself, just how wonderful you truly are. Because the more we get to know what a miracle we are and what amazing, loving human beings we are, once we discover the truth of who we are, we have the power to change the world. And that's what we're doing. So may love and prosperity prevail. Oh, and if you'd like, uh, see y'all next week. I'll be back Monday. I hope I'm going to be doing a live from my business page, I'm doing some live 3 to 5 minute tips on how to thrive and make money during, how to solve problems and thrive during challenging times. If anybody wants to join me on my Facebook page for that, it's a little different twist than what I do here. Uh, it's focused on how to actually apply some of the spiritual wisdom of Jesus to make money and thrive during these difficult times. And part of my book. So if you'd like to join me there, just at 1 o'clock, come on over to Financial Heart Space, and you will find me doing a really short little sharing of a couple of one-on-one tip today from that book. So and I'm giving that book away. So uh, just come on over and see me there if you like. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend, and I will see you on Monday. May love and prosperity prevail.